today I'm going to teach you everything you need to know to trim a hoof on a sheep or a goat. First, you're going to need some supplies. You're going to need a hoof trimming shears. If you have nothing else, this is what you need. I like to have a knife. Once I get done trimming those outer edges, I like to have a knife to smooth it out. Probably the most important thing you need is a pair of gloves. Let's quickly go over some parts of the hoof before we start. The outside part of the hoof is called the hoof wall. That's the hard outer part that you see just from looking at it. The inner part of the hoof is called the sole. It's got a little bit of give to it and it's soft and flexible. The junction where those two meet is called the white line. If there's a defect in that white line, dirt and debris can get up into the hoof and it can cause a whole host of issues. And last we have the corium. The corium is basically the blood supply on the inside of the hoof that helps create new growth. It's also known as the quick. We want to stay away from that when we're trimming because we don't want to do any damage to it. This is a pretty typical back foot that's a little overgrown. So we're going to start by just kind of taking those edges down. It's overgrown, but it's not super overgrown. This is a little bit difficult to do with the camera in the way, so I apologize. So we're looking at just getting that nice and straight. Full disclosure, this hoof is no longer attached to a goat. I had one that I processed the other day and I thought this would be a really great way to make a teaching video without a goat kicking around on me. Now that I've got those edges off, I'm just gonna take this knife and I'm gonna gently smooth this out. So typically while I am hoof trimming, I actually don't prefer a hoof trimming stand. I really like to just straddle them. For my size goat, that works really well. I raise boar goats and it's kind of the perfect height for me to just bend over and lift their foot up. And I feel like I have the most control over them holding their foot like this. When it's up off to the side on a milking stand or something like that, I just don't feel like I have as good a control because when I'm doing this, I can brace my hand on my leg. So now we've got a fairly smooth surface. If you see right here, we've got a little defect. So we just want to cut that away until it's completely gone. If that kept going, we would follow it down through there to make sure that it cleared out. So some people like to get these real spick and span smooth. You don't really need to because this will all wear down. You can see it's getting a little thin in there and you can start to see a little pink underneath it. We're gonna quit. Then we're gonna move on to the dew claw. And so I really just take little nips of this off. And she's all trimmed up and ready to go. That was a really easy hoof. Here we've got another back hoof. We've got this one splaying out on this side. See how it curves out? Sometimes they both curl in and sometimes they all go the same way. These are pretty easy and satisfying to deal with because they come off nice and easy. There's a clear line. Now this doe was definitely due for a trim. This is fairly overgrown. So the other thing is that'll happen inside the toe. This comes around so much more. So what I like to do is come in here and even that out. Because when I come and even this out here, we're then going to have this coming up straight on both sides without it starting to go one way or the other. And you want to make sure your knife is really sharp, but you also want to make sure that you are wearing a pair of gloves when you do it because we don't want to be cutting into your wrist or your finger. Some people don't smooth it out with a knife. They just use the hoof trimming shears and get it the best they can. I'm not saying right or wrong. I like to give it a good swipe at the end. I think it also depends on the size of hoof you're dealing with. I mean, I'd imagine it's a lot different doing hooves on a pygmy goat as it is compared to a boar goat. There we go. So now we've got a nice even hoof. So part of what you want to look at is if we lift this hair up, there's the line. So we want that line to be pretty even here. So I actually could take a little bit more out of the middle there. You can see there's rings of growth on this hoof, and you want to be kind of even with those rings. So actually, I think I will take a little more off that toe. This is actually remarkably hard to do without it being attached to anything. The distance from here to here and here to here are about equal, and that's what we're looking for. And our last hoof, this is a front hoof, and this one is extremely overgrown. All of this is extra and needs to come off. Her other front hoof was just fine. This side actually isn't bad at all. Little overgrown in the toe, but not bad. And she just had this crazy elf toe. With these, if you kind of look straight across, you know you can take this whole toe off. And a lot of times those are hollow anyway, and you can just go ahead and hack right into them. If you're unsure, take little bits off. And over time, as you get used to it, you get better and better. These ones that curl over, it's nice to get the edge of your trimmer under there, and you can easily trim big pieces of that out at one time. So you're looking to do the bulk of the trimming work with your trimmer here, and then you want to go back in and fine tune with your knife if you need to. Almost always you're going to be taking way more off the toes than you are off the heels. See how we've got some cracking in this hoof? So I'm going to just kind of gently start to take edge of this off, and I can see that I'm not going to be able to continue with this trimmer because I can't get as pinpointed as I like. I can take little bits and pieces off here the best I can, but what we want to do is cut that all away so it's smooth, because if we leave this, dirt and manure will get packed in there and it'll continue to separate that more. You can actually have them separate all the way up here to the hoof line, and we don't want to do that. So we want to take away any pockets that may lead up the foot eventually. So for those, you just want to gently, and this is why you want to wear gloves, because your fingers are kind of in the way. You want to start to kind of take that outer edge off without getting this farther down. All right, that's pretty well smoothed out. There's still a little bit of staining there that you can see, but this is smooth and there's no pocket between this inner part and the white line. Take a little more of this off, and this will regrow by itself and it's fine. Let's see. And that's just dirt. So we've got rid of that line right there, and that's all smooth. It looks janky, but it's fine. So she actually has a really tall heel. So while we did take a lot of that toe off, she has an amazing amount of heel. I have does that I honestly, I never even touch their heel. Sometimes I smooth it out a little, but I just never even cut anything off. It just doesn't grow like the rest of it does. All right, so you can see right under here is her corium. So we don't want to go any farther. This is nice and smooth. What we could do is take more heel off if we need to. Let's take a look at it. Actually, this toe is a little shorter. We could take more heel off. It is much easier to trim when it's been muddy, when they've been in the rain. When you're in the middle of a drought, that is not an easy time to trim hooves because they are rock hard and you will be fighting it. It is really, really difficult to do that. So you can kind of see how this all kind of curves over. I want that to come straight up. So I'm just gonna cut that soft stuff off in the middle. This here, let's say I was as far as I wanted to go and she still had a little divot in there. That is not anything to worry about. It's soft, it doesn't go anywhere. We can see it does not travel up into the hoof at all. And it's not making a pocket between the white line and the inner hoof. I am gonna take that down more, but let's say we were at the final height that we wanted, I would not have to. That's looking pretty good. About equal there. Pretty equal there. Looks like she had a little bit of bruising in there. Nothing to worry about. That's probably just because that toe was overgrown. All right, so this is just a little deformed from having been overgrown. I would follow up with that in about 3 weeks and just give it a second trim, and that'll completely take care of it by then. Now, I would say this was a pretty conservative hoof trim. I don't like to get too aggressive on the first trim. And once again, we're just gonna hit those dew claws. They do get this upper stuff that gets kind of crusty and scaly. Sometimes if it's like easy enough to get it, I'll get it off. Sometimes I don't worry about it. She doesn't have much to take off on these front ones. She's good to go. My favorite is the Zenport Q91. This is a close second, Zenport Z116. There's also a turquoise colored one that is very popular in the sheep and goat world. It's on pretty much any website that you can order hoof trimming supplies on. I find it to be a little too big and clunky for my hands. My absolute favorite is my old Chicago cutlery knife. It's getting skinny because it's been sharpened a lot of times. But if grandma's got one laying in her drawer, these are the best ones. It's the size up from the paring knife. Otherwise, just go to your local thrift store and try to find the heaviest weight one you can find with just a slight flex in the blade. I use an AccuSharp. There's lots of off-brand ones similar to it. You can just get it on Amazon. If you're gonna use a nice electric sharpener, your blade's gonna last longer because these do shave a lot off your knife. Pair of gloves. I like just like a mechanics brand pair of gloves or something similar, something where you still have a lot of dexterity and you don't want them to be baggy on you. You really want to have a nice, good, slim fit. It's also nice to have some hoof wrap around in case you run into an abscess or you do accidentally cut them too close and you want to wrap it up. I like to take a full-length wrap and I just take my knife and I cut them down in half. It just is overkill to have those wide ones on a goat, and usually with 1/2 I can get 3 wraps easily out of it. I also like to have some of these cotton pads. That way if you need to apply any antibiotics or anything underneath the wrap, it's easy to apply it to these and stick it on. Today we didn't cover any major problems like abscesses or corns or big lesions within the hoof. Other things handy to have in your hoof trimming kit would be oxytetracycline, copper tox, and betadine. Betadine can be used just to dry up any open lesions. Copper tox is used to treat like a hoof scald or a corn, and the oxytetracycline would be used to treat an abscess. I will be making a video in the future to address these more complex hoof issues.